This is 10 minutes of product management. My name is Nilaus. Today we're going to answer the question, or at least address the question, why is inventory so bad? In my real world experience, as well as in my Factorio gaming, I am getting asked a lot why I have such a crusade against inventory and buffers in general. So I think this video will try to address my problem with inventory and why I think it's bad and it's something we need to avoid. Right, let's start by just looking at the description of, or the definition of what is inventory. Well, inventory is, according to Wikipedia, defined as the goods and materials that a business holds for the ultimate goal to have a purpose of resale, of course, yes. However, that doesn't really say anything. I think it's a very convoluted way of stating basically it is finished products or components not generating value. That's the symbol of it. You've built something, physical or software, and it's not generating value. So that's inventory. You're putting it in stock for a later purpose. And obviously this is waste. You put effort into something, you put time and money into something, and it's not generating value. So don't do it. That's the very essence of it. I think I'll go in a bit more detail into this video though. All right, so this is in terms of the physical world. I'm going to address this both from a physical world, physical production, and also from a software development perspective. In the physical world, this is both the terms of physical products. I mean, the finished car that you've produced and it's sitting in stock waiting to be sold. But it's also the subcomponents that you're producing that will be assembled at a later point into the car. So both are inventory or buffers in this case, and they're both bad because if you look at a warehouse and it's full of stuff, that means this is stuff that you do not get money for. Let's look at it from an inventory in terms of software development. So you don't really have a physical product or a physical component. However, you still pretty much have the same thing. And I'm going to define it in these two different types of waste, or two different types of inventory. And now the one part is you have a feature that is built and ready and tested and it's good to go. It's just not released to a customer. Maybe it's waiting for the next release. That is inventory. However, it's also the process of going from requirements to design, to build, to testing, and to release. That is the equivalent of having subcomponents that are not yet assembled. So they are in themselves not valuable, but if you're spending a long time in this process, let's say a month of design, a month of requirements, a month of design, a month of build, a month of test, then you have 4 months of production components that are sitting inside your system instead of being out there generating value. So shorter release cycles is something I'm always advocating for in terms of software development. Now, is inventory an asset or liability? If you look at it strictly from a financial perspective, it is listed on a balance sheet under assets, and that means it is something that has a value. And of course, inventory has a value because you've produced the finished goods. Now, the question is then, how much value? Because if you're a product manager, you do not look at a full inventory as, oh, this is great, I have so much value here. You're looking at it from a perspective of, this is a big problem because the customers are not buying the stuff as fast as I can produce it. That's the part you need to address. You need to answer the questions, will I be able to sell this in the future? Will I be able to sell it at a full price? What is the cost of maintaining my inventory? Inventory is not free to maintain. Well, in software, it's kind of is, because you don't need warehouses. It's just stuck there in a repository. But the big part of it is, I've now produced something. Is there a need for it? What do the customers want? If I can keep producing and putting it in a warehouse or just putting in a backlog. But if there's no demand for it, I need that customer feedback and I need to generate value. Because the value is only generated once the customer has it in their hands and start using the product, whether it's physical or immaterial. Now let's look at some examples. Well, in a physical example, we are a production company producing Christmas ornaments. I think this is a very straightforward example. The demand is quite clearly confined to, in this case, let's say 1 month of the year. In December, everyone is buying our Christmas ornaments. But we have a factory, a small little factory that produces over 12 months to fulfill demand. That means everything we produce, all the Christmas ornaments we produce in January, will be put in storage and then will be inventory for the rest of the year or for the next 11 months until we come around and there's a huge spike in demand. And if we look at it from an aggregate case, like on a monthly budget wise, we can see, hey, this is great because our yearly production, our yearly demand, they are matching, everything is fine. However, you are now spending a lot of materials to put stuff in warehousing. And you are not really seeing the underlying cause and effect between the supply and demand. You're just looking at it aggregated. That is one of the problems of inventory. So ideally, you would be producing everything in December according to the needs. And then we get into some other constraints like, well, what are you going to do with your factory needs to be 12 times as big, but only operating 1/12 of the year. That obviously doesn't scale. But you're still looking at it, you are seeing the true problem, and at least you can start making decisions based on the true problem instead of just looking at it an aggregate supply and demand. Similarly, in terms of software, if you have long release cycles, such as many enterprise software, they have annual releases, annual major releases. Well, the annual major release cycle is a big problem, in my opinion, because what happens is that you build your product and then it has to wait 11 months until you even start getting feedback. The difference between the physical product and the annual release product is that the demand is there. In many cases, there is a demand for it, but you just cannot release it yet because it's waiting for the next major release and the code cannot be released. And that's a big problem because you are now producing inventory. And that gives us all of the associated problems. So one of the key points that I hear a lot of people mentioning when they're saying inventory or buffers are good, both in games and software development and physical production, it is in terms of it helps smoothen the production. So it evens out the variations. But that's exactly my point here, is that by evening out variations, you are hiding the problem. You are simply just hiding the fact that Christmas ornaments do not sell all year. They only sell in December. So why would you produce them in January if they only sell in December? That's really the key point here. And the problems, just to summarize the problems with inventory in general, this is exactly the same for physical production as well as software development. It is the fact that you are delaying the value generation. We are producing our Christmas ornaments or our next feature, but it's going to be 11 months more until someone actually gets it in their hands and start generating value. That is the key problem of inventory. It's the biggest issue because you're delaying your value generation. The second part is that you are hiding the cause of variation. If you're looking at it, as I said, on the aggregate level, you're not seeing that there is actually a seasonality to it or a variability. This is something that Toyota has been extremely diligent on, is making everything into standard work that is consistent and defined and measurable and no variation. That means you can start getting some things that are inherently high variability, or at least perceived as high variability, get that to be very standardized and therefore measurable, and therefore something you can build a production line according to. Now that's the cause of the variation. And the last part, which I think is extremely relevant for software development, if you have a major release on a yearly cycle, that means the dialogue with the customer is only happening on a yearly cycle. You release a product, release a feature, the customers say, oh, this is great, can it also do? And then we'll say, yes, sure it can, in a year. And then you release something more, and in the meantime, their business has shifted, especially in markets that move extremely fast. You cannot have such a long release cycle or such a long feedback loop, because it may take 10 iterations for the customer and you to really attune to the needs. And if you only do releases every year or 3 months or whatever it is, it takes a lot longer to get that precious feedback and incorporate it into the future product. Those are the three key points, and why I'm always chasing inventory and trying to root it out of my processes. Now, I think I'll round it off with a reading recommendation. So I read a lot of books. That's or actually I don't read a lot of books. I listen to a lot of audiobooks. All my audiobooks come from Audible, and in sort of the inspiration for this video comes very much from the Toyota way. So if you are interested in learning more about this topic, then I would suggest you go to Audible and get a subscription. And with this code linked here, I guess, you will also be able to get a month free. Free, it's not free, but anyway, some kind of discount with that offer code. Now, this was my very first video of the product management 10 minutes, and I hope that you liked it. And if you do, then be sure to comment, and the usual YouTube shenanigans, like and share and subscribe and all that. But especially since this is a new concept, I'm very eager to hear your feedback on what works, what doesn't work, what I need to change. So with that, thank you very much for joining. I hope to see you in a future episode. Thank you.